how was the weekend?
Yeah, good. Just trying to think. The band had a rehearsal on Saturday past there, so that went pretty well. Just the sort of world's prep and getting ready for that. And this is Monday. Yeah, this Friday and Saturday. Yeah, so good. It was good.
Nice. And you have practices every night this week, or just like 2 nights, 3 nights?
So this week we're doing tonight, Monday night and Thursday night. We originally had a Tuesday scheduled, but that's been sort of abandoned because there's a quartet playing at the quartet event at Pipe Live.
Oh, so, true.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there was a bit of a scheduling error there on my part, but so we've only got the 2 nights, but then we're playing. We've got 4 performances on 2 on Friday and then 2 on Saturday, so we'll be playing lots anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that usually you do.
No, I was just going to say, if it's not right by this point in the year, then it's not going to be right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The hard work should have been done already. But do you guys usually practice on a Thursday before the Friday performances, or?
So our regular practice nights would be a Monday and a Wednesday. That'd be our regular sort of rehearsal nights. But this week's it's just a bit different this week, And of course you've got the concert on the Wednesday night, and there's a few of the guys usually get tickets to go to that and stuff. So makes sense just to move it to the Thursday.
Yeah, it makes sense. Cool. And then this is the last competition of the season. That's kind of crazy. But I wanted to kind of talk about yourself. Like I'm hoping that some people that are listening or will be listening, they don't necessarily know too much about you. I hope that they do. But you're from Scotland and then originally from Bathgate, isn't it? And you've been with Scottish Power for a few years.
Yeah, that's right. So, I'm Scottish. Originally from Bathgate, which is sort of, like a suburb of Bathgate, the town. And Scottish Power. I've been there now. I was trying to work this out just the other day. I think it's like this is either my 16th or 17th season now. I was appointed.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what, though, it doesn't seem like that at all. It definitely doesn't. I must enjoy it. Yeah, I must still be enjoying it because it really doesn't seem like that length of time. I'm gonna say that this is like season number 16 because I've been in the post just slightly longer than my daughter's been alive. So yeah, she's 15. So I think
is that how you put 1 and 1? You just think about when your daughter was born.
Yeah,
that's funny. So, and then you saw 2 leading drummer. You had 2 leading drummer during that time, right? Barry and Jake. Now.
That's right. So when I joined the band, Barry Wilson was the leading drummer, and he was there up until I'm sure Barry's last season was 2014. So Barry was there. I joined the band in 2006. So Barry was there for a good part of that. And then Jake. So Barry retired, and Jake was appointed the leading drummer at the end of the 2014 season. So Jake's first season would have been the 2015 season. Yeah. So
2015.
Yeah, he's been there. So he's been there a good couple of years.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's crazy how time flies. You always think about your daughter's age versus how long you've been Scottish Power, but it's a good way to remember for sure. And one thing, I messaged you about it, but I've always, you've always been very future forward about. I remember a conversation where you were talking about, when a pipe major, the band comes in and they have to do, by the right and, pipes up, pipes down, like that takes like, a certain amount of time for, performance or at least the bagpipe to kind of like not be up to where it should be. But also, I think it was last year, or no, it was not last year, but right before COVID, you had like this the paper, the wrap paper around the chanter, for the song. You have all these like amazing ideas always that they are very non-traditional, I would say, and that comes with your music as well, which is very non-traditional. Can you like tell me about like how think back about Extreme, one of the album that you had, which I loved. Like I remember a few years ago listening it over and over. I thought it was cracking. But what's what's your inspiration? How do you come about think about those ideas maybe as the band or solo, like doing the albums? Like do you have a tip? Do you have something that you do? And
it's a weird one, to be honest with you. Like if we look at the sort of the CDs and the albums and that kind of solo sort of stuff, like the composition aspect of what I do, most of the ideas that I get for tunes and composing and stuff like that just completely come out of nowhere. Like they just, I don't ever deliberately sit down and try to compose a tune, because I always find that if I make myself do that, then it usually ends up not being too good. Whereas, but the downside to that is that there are occasions where, I'll go for a long period of time without actually having any ideas, or there's nothing happening composition-wise and things like that, because the head's full of other stuff, like there's other things going on.
Right.
And I think what happens there is that creative part of whatever's going on inside doesn't get a chance to sort of do its thing, But yeah, certainly I've always found, when I was young, like a teenager and things like that, I started composing at quite an early age. But I used to find when I was a teenager, like I was writing every day pretty much. Because,
oh, really?
What does a teenager have to worry about, other than going to school or whatever? So there was lots in my head for those ideas and things like that to formulate. But the older I've got, the more things start to happen. I suppose the more responsibilities you end up taking on and things like that. That headspace gets filled up, So that's the kind of composing side of it. But when it comes to let's take a look maybe at the music that we play with the band and the medley construction stuff and all that kind of thing. I've always been a very sort of firm advocate of playing tunes or music that you enjoy playing. It's never a case of trying to be different for the sake of being different. A few years ago, we did quite an interesting arrangement of a pibroch in Medley. And,
that's right.
Sorry, I'm just going to turn this off. We still play actually some pibroch just now, but we actually took a pibroch and sort of properly arranged it for the medley. It was the Flame of Wrath, was the pibroch, and that idea actually took I think I had the idea maybe a good 6 years before it actually made its way into a medley.
You thought about it for multiple years.
Oh yeah. The idea had been sort of floating around for a good number of years before it actually happened. And then eventually I was just like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And it sort of took shape and evolved. And I really, really enjoyed that medley. It was different because it wasn't, your usual sort of shape or construction.
Right. It was unique.
It was unique, yeah. Because of that, you either liked it or you didn't like it, and it was really that simple. And it was an interesting reaction. At the end of the day, music is music. Whether we're talking about pipe bands or we're talking about chart music or any kind of music. Music's music. You either like it or you don't. You know.
Yeah.
We tend to be very
true.
insular. You know, when we're talking about pipe bands and things like that and stuff like that, I think we're quite guilty of being quite insular about how we look at it, and sort of, you know, there is the tradition and things like that, and that's to be fully respected. Like, I've fully respected the traditional side of what we do, because it's a challenge. You know, like it's a challenge. But when it comes to the creative side, where we're allowed to be a wee bit more creative, and that the platform for that is the Medley, the pipe band Medley, you know,
right.
Competitive. I think there's like an expectation that it has a certain format, and again, I sort of I agree with it. I do agree with the having the sort of the kind of format there, because otherwise, you know, what are you trying to achieve? Like, so, and when I say
all
format,
over the place.
I mean, yeah. So particular types of tunes. I mean, you know, if we look at, I don't know too much about it. The only experience that I have of it, but the whole Breton scene, and that I went over and competed that one time with the Brigade, and it was a fantastic experience. But if you look at what the guys are doing, there's still a format there. There's still particular types of dances or time signatures and tunes contained within these medleys. So there is a format, there is a structure. But within that structure, you can play with the boundaries of what you're, you know, the music that you're bringing to that. And so therefore,
exactly.
you know, using that kind of thought process, you're then, you know, well, why wouldn't you put a pibroch in there if it can be made to work so that musically it makes sense? Then why wouldn't you? You know, so it's not a case of, right, I do this because I want to be different from everybody else. It's a case of the idea happened, and I was like, actually, that's potentially got some you know, some substance to it. Then sat on it and kind of baked it and thought about it, and you know, eventually it made its way into the medley, and we ended up with something that I was really quite happy with in terms of the overall structure of that medley. It was the end result was, and it was enjoyable to play, and I think that's always a very important but a good sign, because if you've got a team of, let's say, say 40, anywhere between 40 and 50 people playing music, and the majority or all of those people and enjoying performing that piece, be it a medley or a march of Spain or whatever else, then you're going to get the best from these people. But also, it's a strange one, you know, sometimes you'll play a medley that you've put together, and, you know, I've put together medleys pretty much a new medley every year for the band, and sometimes you'll hit on a medley, and it's like you've no sooner have you started playing this piece that is finished, because it's so enjoyable, and you don't see the individual components of it. It's just one big thing, and it's because you're enjoying yourself playing the music so much, it's over before it started, you know. And then other times you'll get other ones where you're like, oh God, we're only halfway through this here. You know what I mean?
I'm happy I'm not playing that one anymore. Yay. That's funny.
But if we take that then towards some of the other things that we've done, like, you know, like the Mylar wraps that we had on the bag covers and things like that, that's just a case of, you know, we have an issue. How can we address this issue and so that it's no longer a problem for us anymore? And, you know, it's funny how things like, obviously, playing outside, because what we do is very much an outdoors instrument, right? Particularly with pipe bands and the competitions and things like that. But playing outside, you're exposed to all the elements. So it could be rain, and most of the time that's going to be true here in Scotland. But also, it could be brilliant sunshine, and that does happen. Not very often, but it does happen. And the covers, so we, you know, on the pipe bag itself, we have like material covers just to make it look good. So the pipe bag cover, in a lot of cases, is a dark material, right? The ones that we use are black. So when you have got, you know, brilliant sunshine, shining down onto this black cover, what happens is it heats up. And when it heats up, that heats up the bag temperature inside, and it causes problems with tuning and pitch and the tone and things like that. So I started thinking about it because we had played at a contest, and it was a brilliant day weather, like a fantastic day weather-wise. I think it must have been in the high 20s, which you know is very high for here in terms of temperature.
It's pretty good in Scotland,
That's a good day. But we had been competing in this brilliant sunshine, and when we had come off after having played our performance and stuff, the performance itself, it was what it was. It was okay, but the sound suffered because of the sun. And so I started thinking about this, and I was like, in actual fact, once we come off, I just happened to put my hand on the front part, because it's the front part that gets the most of the sun. I just happened to put my hand on the front of the bag, and it was roasting hot, like proper roasting hot. And it stayed like that for a good 10 to 15 minutes afterwards. So then I'm thinking, there must be a way for us to reflect that sunlight so it's not getting a chance to heat the bag up. So then I'm thinking, right, what have we got that we could use out there? Tinfoil? Nah, it's not going to work. Various different things. And the first time we did it back in 2019, we actually used that. I'm sure it's called Mylar. I'm sure it was developed by NASA for like the space shuttles and all that. It's like bubble wrap, but it's got like a foil on the top and the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah.
What we used the first time we did it. And it worked really well. And of course, through the sort of process of trying to figure it out and all the rest of it, I did a couple of wee sort of really basic experiments, like taking two bag covers and then taking like a temperature probe and putting it inside the bag cover and then sitting it out in the brilliant sunshine and measuring what was happening. So I covered up the front of one of them with the Mylar and put the temperature probe inside, and the other one just left it with nothing on it with the temperature probe inside. And there was a difference, I think it was about 10 or 15 degrees because of that concentrated sunlight on the black bag cover.
Wow.
Now, that's where it causes problems for your tuning and things like that. And then if you add on top of that, and the even worse scenario is a cloudy day with breaks in the cloud and the sun coming in and out and in and out and in and out. That causes absolute chaos.
I know. So, that's the difference between piping and drumming, right there.
It definitely makes life a bit more interesting and challenging on a sunny day.
Yeah.
So it does. So, as much as we moan about the weather here, an overcast day but warm's like the perfect scenario for us, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Mylar fun really well. Yeah, it worked really, really well. And then we've kind of taken took it a bit of a stage further now, and we're not using the bubble wrap stuff anymore. We're using the blankets that the like paramedics and thing use to keep people warm or what. So it's very, very thin and very, very lightweight. So we're actually using that now instead.
Oh, I see. I love how you improve, or kept thinking about it even during the pandemic and doing experiments. And I love the story behind it. I think you see on, obviously now that I live in the US, I only see the video, but you see the video and you're like, wow, that's interesting. Like, not all the bands are doing it, but you don't know the backstory and like what went, behind the scene to actually have this going on. So this is awesome, super insightful as well. Have you seen other bands doing it at competition this year, or?
Not here, but I believe there was maybe a couple of bands did it in Canada there during. I think it was maybe in June or something like that. In fact, I have a student who's Pipe Major of a band over there, and he was asking me about it, and they did it at one of the contests, and it helped. They had noticed that it helped them greatly. But I think there was another maybe grade 2 band over there had done it as well.
Interesting.
That I've heard about. So the thing is, from my point of view, from the band's point of view, it would be crazy not to, because you're just creating a scenario where you don't have to. You can eliminate a potential, whole extra load of work. Really, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. That's brilliant. We never know. Maybe we'll hear or see more bands in the future that will be doing something similar. But I'm, always fascinated by you're always thinking about what could be done better, what could be done different to kind of like just maximize the performance, right, itself, and also have just put the best performance out there. Touching back on the music, so you've done 3 or 4 albums. I remember actually last year my partner's dad passed away, and you wrote a tune and for him, which was amazing. And I remember talking to you about it, and you said, "Oh yeah, I have many tunes already written in like a book. Like, do you?" What's your process? You were talking about it's just in my head, and then I just write about it, right? But do you have a lot of tunes that over the years you just write and put them into a book? You've launched two books or 3 books. One of them being a USB key. Once again, one of those like things that are kind of like new and fresh into the piping world, as opposed to just have your typical book. Are you planning to write another book soon, or you just keep writing tunes and then kind of go back to it and see which one could be in the next medley, or what's the process?
So, like I was saying, like the composing thing is something that just happens, and I don't ever really try to force it. But the nice thing is that it hasn't completely stopped or anything like that. So there's still, the odd time when during the sort of closed part of the pipe band season, when I don't have to concern myself with keeping the band going and getting it sounding as good as it can and stuff like that, I tend to have a bit more free time, and I dare say I would say there'd probably be a few tunes might come out of my head during that period. But kind of the way it's kind of worked over the years is I've got 2 digital books, 2 ebooks, and there was 2 books prior to that as well, actually, with some of my really old material from when I was young. And the first 2 books, the paper books, they were full of the tunes that were recorded on my first 2 or 3 albums, CDs. And so it made sense for those tunes to be published in these collections, along with a lot of other tunes that maybe didn't make it necessarily onto the CD, because you've only got a certain amount of time to be using or to be on a CD. So that was those 2 books, and they were published. And then, of course, I kept just writing after that, and then I got to a point where I had enough material, I felt, to be able to produce a new book. So then at that point, I'm thinking, how do I do this? Do I want to do another paper book? And then I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't buy books. Most of what I've got now is all digital stuff,
right?
Because it doesn't degrade. You can't really lose it. And, it's all based in some kind of cloud-based storage. So I was thinking to myself, do I really want to go down the route of doing another paper book, and all the associated costs and things like that involved with that? Because it's quite an expensive business to produce.
It is. It could get really expensive.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. So then I ended up talking to Jason, and it was actually Jason come up with the idea of doing a digital book. And then, of course, through that conversation came that, well, why don't we do a USB card? Because then at least, there's a physical item that's that's a tangible thing that they can hold. And so that was where the first idea of doing a digital book came from was usual. Conversations are great things for opening up thoughts and coming up with some great ideas and things like that. So, yeah. So I didn't have too much experience of any kind of, doing layouts and all that kind of stuff. So Jason helped me greatly with that. And basically did the whole layout and all that kind of thing for the first of the digital books. And that was released, I think, in like 2012, maybe 2013, in about there somewhere. I think it was somewhere around about there. So anyway, after that was released, kept composing, still writing tune, and sorry for these pings. I don't know how to turn these things off, so I don't know if you're hearing any of these pings, but
I do. Anyway, it's okay.
No worries. So yeah, then I had all this material ready to do a second digital book. So that'd be like my fourth collection of pipe tunes. And so I was like, right, I'm going to learn or try and figure this out to see if I can actually do it myself this time. So it took me a while, but eventually I managed to figure it out and get everything done layout wise, and managed to. I was really actually quite impressed with myself because I managed to figure out how to make the PDF.
Actually, I remember you reaching out. That's right. I remember you reaching out. That's awesome. I'm glad you did it. Yeah.
Pick the brains of people who know. That's it. So after speaking to yourself and figuring it all out, it then became a fully you can fully navigate the book. So using it on a phone, on a small screen on a phone, then becomes 100 times easier because you're not having to scroll all the way through this thing to find the tune. You just click on the tune title and the contents page, bang, it takes you right to the page. So it's cool. And I'm particularly impressed with myself for being able to work that out.
That's awesome.
It makes perfect sense, though. At the same time, it's like, why wouldn't you if you can do something that's going to make life easier, and use it on a small screen. It's fine on a Mac or a tablet or something like that. It's easy enough to do it. Scroll through a book on a screen that size, but on a phone screen, you're sitting on the train with your electric charger, your headphones in, on your phone screen, looking away at it. It just makes it so much more convenient, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, that's great. And I'm glad you're proud of the. I feel like you're more proud of the result in terms of the design and the layout than the tunes themselves inside the book, which is kind of funny. For people listening, probably the opposite, but that's awesome.
No, I mean it's to be able to package something up in a way that's totally sort of usable for people, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's supposed the end result there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's right. Before we touch into one of your new hobby, which is cooking, we'll get into it. I like to ask people about just their favorite medley, or it could be a tune. I have definitely a few tunes. Extreme, one that you wrote, which I think is cracking, is just awesome, never gets old. But if you had to pick a medley that you put together as a band, or a tune that you put together, you've played, or one that is coming up and no one's heard yet. But what is your favorite tune or medley, and why?
That's a really tough question.
You talked about the medley of the Pibroch, right? Like, is it quite up there with?
So that medley would be pretty high up on the list. It wouldn't be at the top though, because it's such a difficult question this for me to answer. People ask me, "Have you got a favourite tune?" or blah 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 blah. And I always find that a really difficult question to answer because I have so many things that I like, performances that I like, not maybe necessarily the actual content, but the performances captured my attention, or been inspirational. So to give it sounds like I'm dodging it. dodging the question, but it's really difficult for me. It's difficult because there are so many different things that I have liked over the years that I've heard. Like for a long time, the only thing I would listen to, because I don't really listen to that much music, believe it or not, outside it, and I don't really listen to much in the way of recordings of pipe bands either. So for a long number of years, one of the only medley recordings that I would ever listen to was Victoria Police's medley from the 1998 Worlds, the year they won.
Where they won, right? Yeah,
fantastic performance. Just a fantastic performance. You know, now it wasn't without its wee blemishes here and there, but from a performance point of view, just the emotion you could, like, you know, you hear people talking about, you know, they were conveying the emotion in the performance and things like that. I've never really been one for being able to see that, but there are very few occasions where I have been able to latch onto that, and you can clearly see that performance meant a lot to these people that were giving it. It was a fantastic medley, nice tunes, well put together, well constructed, good harmonies, blah 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 blah, excellent ensemble all the way through and a really fantastic tune to finish. But the performance itself was captivating, and then a few years after that, along came another one. Right, and the other one that stands out for me was Field Marshal from 2003.
The Fiddler's Rally, was it?
They didn't win that year. I think they were. Yeah. What? Sorry.
What was the tune?
They didn't. Year? There's the thing. You asked me what the tune is, but I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But I do know that the medley finished with the Highlandman Kissed His Mother. Just a fantastic wee set of 3 reels at the end of it. A dancing feet was in there and stuff like that. And it was just, again, it wasn't so much the medley itself, it was the performance. Now, the medley was a fantastic choice of tunes, again, well put together, good, fantastic playing, and of course, you know, Field Marshall's phenomenal sound, but the performance itself, and that one has stuck since I first heard it.
Wow.
There hasn't been for me another that's came close, and I include my own band in that. Now, we have had some really enjoyable performances, but from a standout perspective, maybe I would include our medley performance from 2019 in that same sort of bracket, because it had its blemishes, but from a performance point of view, it really kind of captured me, you know.
Right.
I kind of have that dodged your question.
Yeah, no.
I don't have an absolute favourite tune.
This is great, especially because you write so many tunes. You know, so it's like a kid. You can't pick your favorite kid, right? But I like that you're talking about those old medleys and from different bands as well, right? It means it says a lot about you that you're listening to other bands and you appreciate, you know, but also the fact that you're talking about the performance itself and how it feels, as opposed to be like, oh, it's, you know, 2 or 3 great tunes, or the sound was amazing, or the ensemble was amazing, but you're saying like it was actually the whole package that really feels like a special thing to listen to. So that's fantastic to hear. And then lastly, we have a couple more minutes. I want to kind of wrap this conversation up with obviously, for those that don't follow you on Facebook, you're really into cooking. And we had discussion before. I remember when I had you on the phone last year talking about cooking, and now it's like every week there's like the Chef Chris cooking photos online. So what's the story behind it? Just like another hobby that you didn't think you had in you, and now you're all about it.
I've always enjoyed cooking, just never really been that into it. I like food, right? I really enjoy food. And during the lockdown, basically, is to blame for it, right?
Right.
the very first picture that I put up was a picture of an omelette, right, that I had made. And it came up, I think it came up on memories the other day on social media. It came up on my memories, and it was like something along the lines of, who needs pipe bands when you can cook, or something like that, right? And it just really kind of grew from there. And then I started to kind of get into it. Now, I must add that most of the recipes that I'm cooking are not my own recipes. I'm taking them from here, there, and everywhere, just anywhere I get inspiration, and actually follow a lot of channels now for
Really?
lots of different types of cuisine from all over the globe, right? So, but what I realised was, through the process of sort of taking these recipes and cooking them, was I started to learn a bit about, and this is the bit I don't think I appreciated fully to begin with, was that cooking is like anything else, really. You've got to learn how it works, so you can't just fire everything into anything you want into a pot and expect it to work. So I was starting to learn about herbs and how to cook with herbs, and what herbs work with this type of thing and that type of thing, and blah, 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 blah. And it just became interesting, right? It became interesting. And then, of course, I was putting the pictures up on social media. It was starting to get a bit of attention and things like that.
You did, yeah.
Who doesn't enjoy a few likes on a post on social? You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
I just thought, you know what? And then people started talking to me about it. Like, there was a couple of people got in touch. Like, my sister was actually one of them. She says, put your picture up today yet? And I was like, no, I'm not cooking. I'm getting a takeaway. Oh. I wait on it coming out every day now, because it gives me inspiration of what I might cook for our family for dinner and things like that. And there was a few other people that get in touch, during the in and out of lockdown thing, and said, like, we really enjoy your posts because it gives us a wee bit of inspiration of
what to cook.
So I think I've maybe encouraged people to get their hands out a wee bit more often, or something like that. So that was one of the other main reasons why I kept it going, was I was enjoying it. I think during the whole process as well, I managed to improve slightly on my photography skills as well, because some of the first ones were pretty grim.
Look at that.
But just giving a wee bit more, the angles and the light and all this kind of stuff. So it was a bit of fun. It started as a bit of fun, and it still is fun, and I still really enjoy it. But I'm not doing it anywhere near as much as I was during the whole. And I'll tell you something else: it cost an absolute fortune. Get out and buy those.
That is funny.
Oh, yeah, I wish I could. I wouldn't. It's a bit of a disaster right now, but I wish I could show you my spice rack. It's ridiculous.
Really,
the spices and herbs and all that I've got.
So should we? Really fun. No, that's awesome. Should we expect a book about cooking soon, or is this in the mix, or is it something like cooking and bagpipe that could get together? Bridge the two hobbies.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because it was a thought. I can't remember if maybe I'd mentioned this to you or not, but it's a good question, because I have toyed with the idea of doing a piping cookbook. So, getting some recipes in there, but also getting some tunes in there, and just merging the two. I mean, obviously, piping's not. It's my thing. It's what I do. The cooking's a bit of it's a hobby. I would call it a hobby. But bringing the two things together might be quite cool. Actually, it might be quite a nice thing to do.
It is. So, that's amazing.
It's just fine. Yeah, it's just finding the time to do it. I mean, I've certainly got plenty of tunes there to pull it off, and I've got loads of pictures of things that I've got that I've cooked that I could use to maybe do something, So, but it's definitely it's another one of these ideas that's kind of at the back of the head.
All right,
working away.
So maybe in the next few years, we won't be surprised if we see a book that has piping and cooking in it. That's amazing. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Maybe before we go and we wrap it up, anything you want to promote? I know you're doing reads. You obviously have, you're writing tunes. You're a teacher on the side. Is there anything that you want to call out?
So the big things for me right now, I've actually stopped doing the reads now. So I'm not in production with the drone reads anymore. However, there are some other things, like I've got the Armstrong range of bagpipes that are out there. They're manufactured by Wallace Bagpipes for me to my specifications. And I have to say, I mean, I'm not going to say they're fantastic set of bagpipes because I might have got my name on them or anything like that. But the whole point with those was to try to get something that was going to give me the tone that I like to get from an instrument, with ease of tuning, ease of setting them up, and all that kind of thing. So, you can just enjoy playing your pipes. Also doing the Armstrong cut of sheepskin pipe bag as well, which again I don't want to get my hands dirty, so I'm not making them either. They're being made by Bennett pipe bags, so it's a bag that's cut to a shape that I sort of worked on with Mark at Bennett bags, and again, it's about comfort and ease of playing the instrument, really, and then on top of that, I do private teaching. I teach full time in the schools down in East Ayrshire here now. So I've got a full time post teaching for East Ayrshire schools or East Ayrshire Council, and on top of that, I do private lessons and things like that as well. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, best of luck this week. I know it's a full week of practices. For those listening, it's a World's Week, so it's going to be a full week of piping for you. And all the best on Friday and Saturday. I'll be watching. So thanks again.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.